I want to start by thanking Senators Van Turnout, McNeil and Zapone for taking the initiative to table this during your private members' time, and also to commend the work in particular that Senator Van Turnout and Senator O'Clougherty have been doing on this issue for a long period. It was the two senators approached myself and other members a long time back to ask us to take part in an ad hoc group with a view to working on this issue and doing the research on it and consultation and visits before bringing it before the House. And I think that's a great example of how this House should do its work. And I think it's testament to that we don't have a government counter motion this evening, because senators of all parties and none have been working on the issue for a substantial period of time. Welcome also the comments from Senator Conway, and I've no doubt the fact we don't have a counter motion has a lot to do with the work that Senator Conway has done on this as well in terms of getting government support on it. But this is an incredibly important issue. We've over 4,500 people in direct provision, including, as has already been mentioned, over 1,700 children. And as has been said by other senators, whatever about people living in those kind of conditions in one room for a number of months, for 3-6 months, the extended period of time, the reality of what has faced asylum seekers is quite frightening. We've 3,138 people who've been living in direct provision for over 3 years, and 600 for over 7 years. That's 7 years of living in conditions that often involve up to 5 or 6 people in one room. Children of different genders, teenagers of different genders. It can be hard enough to have them all in one house, let alone in one room. Communal bathrooms, parents having to face realities of a single parent if they leave some children unattended while others while they take a small child to the bathroom, and they have to bring everybody, even in the middle of the night. The parents have no freedom over cooking or any other arrangements, which obviously undermines their authority in respect to their children and their ability to build any real parental relationship with their children, and indeed the fact that they can't work. We've heard personal accounts put forward by the Refugee Council and others of parents speaking about the impact that has when they're not able to set that role model for their children to show that they're going out and working, that they're providing for the family, and instead that role is filled by the state. The children see food, shelter as things that are provided by a state agency rather than by their parents. I know that we're the only EU country that has an absolute ban on work. All the other countries have after a year, parents are entitled to work. And I think indeed a lot of this is tied in with the time period that is involved. Because again, whatever about not being allowed to work for a short period of time, the idea that somebody would be in the country for 5, 6, 7 years and not have any ability to provide for themselves, any independence, any opportunity to work, it's really just long-term institutionalisation. And how do you expect people then whose application is successful to have any real chance of integration into Irish society and a real opportunity to participate in what is essentially their new home? So I certainly think that we can do better, and it is timely to have this system reviewed. It was set up in 2000, I think, as kind of a panicked short-term response, because the application figures at that stage were well over 10,000. It was 11,634 in 2003, but it was down to 940 in 2012. So if ever there was an opportunity to actually get this right and change the system, it is now, while we have a lot less people making asylum applications. So I know the Minister is looking at this broader issue in the context of reforming the whole asylum application process, bringing in a new single application system, all of that. And hopefully that will address particularly the issues around speed, because I think if people are fleeing countries where they've fled persecution, things like that, they're entitled to have their applications decided on as quickly as possible. And if their applications don't stand up, that's one thing, but those decisions should be made an awful lot faster, and those who are successful should be given every opportunity at a new life, an independent life, as soon as possible as well, rather than being stuck in kind of state institutionalisation. As has been mentioned by other speakers, concerns have been expressed about the system by a host of persuasive and independent people. The Rapporteur on Child Protection, Jeffrey Shannon, has spoken about the child protection risk. The Ombudsman, Emily O'Reilly, Catherine McGuinness, wrote in a very moving article about how a future government will end up having to apologise for what's going on here, because this is, as other senators have said and has been said in the House on earlier occasions in the context debate that we had on the Magdalen laundries and other issues like that over the last 2 years, what's happening, the risk of what people are being exposed to in these centres, the child protection risk, the institutionalisation, in many respects has parallels with what happened in the past. And we speak about those issues if current governments have apologised for them, but we know at the same time what's going on under our noses in the direct provision system, and we can't say that we don't know, and we have a responsibility to address that. The UN Commissioner and High Commissioner for Refugees has pointed out the mental health consequences of people living for extended periods of time in essentially institutionalised care. So I welcome the fact that we're having this debate. The motion is quite simple, Minister. I know the senators went to great lengths to leave it as unpolitical as possible, and all it calls for is that there would be a review of the system, that there be independent inspections and complaints mechanism, that the child protection aspect will be looked at. I welcome also the fact that Minister Fitzgerald has agreed to meet with our ad hoc group, and I hope that you will, Minister, take on board the genuine concern that's felt by members on all sides of this House about the issue, and that it is something that you will address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Power.